I'm Don. Today we're painting a 3D printed miniature from Ghamak. Today's painting is just basic layering, however, we're using the thinner medium. The thumbnail says sketching all the way because I practically sketched the colors, just slapped them on the model until I came up with a golden lemon standard painting. So I'll talk you through the painting of this awesome Ghamak miniature. Hi, I'm Don. Welcome to my studio. This channel is supported by all these brands. So I needed a quick painting project because I'm working on some Vallejo videos and I needed a quick project for my own channel. And I decided to work on this model. However, the model is a bit too detailed. Like when I was looking at the model, I was like, how do I paint this? I don't have any references because it's a 3D printed miniature and you can't really find references of a painted version of this mini. So I was like, how could I paint or start painting this model? Oh, by the way, I'm using thinner medium, but unlike glaze medium, thinner medium doesn't really add as much transparency to the paints. But I do prefer my mediums over water, but it's practically just using a bit of water to your paints. I always say this in my videos because I prefer mediums, even the very simple thinner medium, because it doesn't make the paint runny. If you add just a little bit, it will just thin the paint enough for like really good brush painting, but it won't really thin down the paint into like a very runny consistency depending on your thinning. Of course, water works. I just really prefer my mediums. Also, it is very important to note that all my mediums are not sponsored by Vallejo. So I bought them myself and I just really like them, so they're not sponsored at all. So again, while looking at the model, I was like, how do I start painting this model? I know that I want the carabao or the ox to look like a carabao because I'm Filipino and I just want to make it look like a native carabao. So I painted it with dark sea blue to make it like blackish and to make it look like a carabao. So after painting the base color of the skin of the carabao or the ox, I then painted the cavalry brown over the red cloth and of course the red hair. And then I decided to paint with raw umber. At this point of painting the model, to be honest, I don't really understand some of the details of the model. Thus, I decided to paint the rest of the details of the rest of the model into raw umber. Because if I paint, I can't decide what color to paint specific parts of the model. So I just decided to paint the whole thing raw umber. So after painting with raw umber, in which I made sure that the separation of the elements of the model remain black, because we started with black primer, I kinda understood the details and parts of the different parts of the model. So now we're painting the base colors of all those elements. Now here comes the idea why I call it sketching, because since we have a raw umber or dark brown underpainting, I'm practically just sketching different colors on top of the raw umber. Because I'm not really focused on painting the metal parts into dark gray and stuff like that. I'm leaving recessed areas raw umber and just sketching on the raised areas with different colors. Simply put, the painting of the raw umber was actually the most time-consuming part of painting this model. after I painted the raw umber, it's just a matter of layering different colors on top of that dark underpainting. The idea here is that raw umber or dark brown or even purple is a really nice shadow color, and even if you don't paint meticulously each part of the model, like for example the skin, if I miss like the hard to reach areas, I was not able to paint with reddish skin, it remains raw umber, which is actually a natural looking shadow for the skin. And the dark brown or raw umber is also a natural looking shadow for the leather parts, for the fur, and even for the like silver NMM armor parts. Now it's a matter of just layering the base colors or sketching the base colors and slapping them all over the model. Also, as I go along and paint this model, at this point of the video, I'm kinda decided on which colors to use on some parts of some elements of the model already. So it's no longer overwhelming, because if you start with like a black primer, even with zenithal underpainting, if you look at the model, it's too detailed. Sometimes it's intimidating and you don't really know where to start. And painting like a good underpainting like the raw umber will help you like move along and paint the project or start the project. Sometimes I do have older videos that I dry brush, like the underpainting, the dark brown, raw umber, or even purple. However, I'm kind of wary on dry brushing 3D printed miniatures because I may break details. So as much as I want to maintain the painting style of dry brushing the underpainting or even the base colors, I'm kind of worried on doing that for 3D printed miniatures because they're a bit more brittle than the usual plastic models. Also, you'll notice, especially for long-time subscribers, that I'm not mixing the thinner medium with the paints. I'm just putting a small amount on the side and mixing a small amount with my brush before I paint it on the model. Basically, I'm conserving the amount of paint I'm using on my wet palette, and also conserving the space of the wet palette so that I have more space to mix paints rather than mixing a lot of colors or a lot of paints that I won't be needing in painting a small miniature. At this point of the video, I'm kinda confident that I can pull off the sketching all the way style, but I decided to not do blending or glazing for this miniature to see if I can come up with a really good miniature without zero glazing, or I mean with zero glazing or zero blending. So we'll see at the end of the video if it kinda passed the golden lemon standard. So I cannot state this enough, especially for beginners or people that are into 3D printing models and miniature. The best way to start painting a model is to just paint like an overall underpainting. Like what we did here, we did a raw umber underpainting. And then from there, you kind of map out all the details by painting the base colors. It's as simple as that. There's no really, like, do not do blending. Do not do whenever I do tutorials like how to paint skin or even the army painting that we did recently. If you'll notice, I'll paint the skin and then I'll do layering and then go back to painting the other parts, which is kind of wrong, especially if you're just starting to like paint models or you're just starting in this hobby. The best way to paint a model is just to like sketch out or paint all the base colors first, and then if you want to improve the quality of the model or the standard of painting, then you do a bit more layering and highlights and even glazing, and you move along, or you make sure that you improve the painting of the model. However, if you're just going for a basic tabletop painting, make sure to just paint a clean like base color for all the elements of the model. So after doing the lazy wash, as you can see, we have a pretty solid looking model. So You could stop here and have a really nicely painted 3D miniature, but of course we're going to push this into golden lemon standard and do a bit more layering. I'm not doing glaring here even though I'm using thinner medium, because if you're glaring you add a bit more medium so that you have semi-transparent paints. But with this one, I'm just using the medium to thin down the paint so that they have a nice flow when I paint them with the brush. For first time people watching this video, I highly recommend you do glaring because you'll have better transitions of the colors and you have nicer blending. However, for this one again, I wanted to see if we could pull off a nice model without blending or glaring, and thus we're just doing basic layering. I must admit though that painting the carabao skin, the bluish carabao skin, and the skin of the rider was kind of tricky for me because I'm not doing layering or blending and it's just basic layering. So what I did is I did some stippling. I applied the layering by a stippling effect so that I kind of have a nice blending of the colors without actually blending. Especially here with the painting of the female rider, as you can see, I'm applying the paint via stippling so that I create nice blending without actually blending the colors. But again, glazing or glaring the skin will produce a better or softer, smoother skin painting, but we're not doing that for this video. Quick tip guys, if you're really pushing the contrast of your miniature, take a picture of your miniature and convert that photo into black and white, and then you'll see if you need to add more highlights or you need to add more shadows. So after taking photos and converting them to black and white, I realized I need to have more highlights on the blade, the NMM, and the gold NMM armor of the female rider, even the skin, even the hair of the female rider. So I added more highlights to improve the overall look of the model. Also, you could see in the video now that it's fairly simple to paint NMM, especially for smaller miniatures like this one, because it's a matter of just placing the proper positioning of the highlights. Also, you'll need really nice highlights, and I actually use gloss white here for the extreme highlights of the NMM. Even the gold NMM, I use ice yellow and then small dots of gloss white to really give it a nice shiny look. Also, you can see here, I use scarlet on the painting of the red hair. I use cavalry brown and then scarlet to have an orange hair. It's kind of tricky to highlight orange hair or orange dwarf beard if you decide to use scrofulous brown or any yellowish kind of paint. It will look like fiery or it will look like fire. So I highly recommend you mix sunny skin tone with the scarlet or even ivory so that you have a light orange. Well, unless you have a light orange model color. Now we are about done. I'm basically just adding a small amount of white gloss or gloss white paint model color so that we have a very sharp looking metallic sword and metallic parts, and we have a nice sparkle to our NMM. And now you can see, even though we're at the end of the video, I'm practically just sketching or applying the paint really swiftly with scratches and stuff like that to produce more texture to our miniature, and that's why I called it sketching all the way. So after doing some final highlights on the NMM, the gold NMM, and the steel NMM, we're now applying burnt umber on the soil part of the base, and then we also painted the top part of the base with scurvy green. And while the scurvy green is still wet, we kind of stippled lime green on top of it. We also dry brush orange brown around the soil of the base just to finish it up, and then we applied some Vallejo tops to finish the model. personally, I think I kinda pulled off this challenge by just sketching all the way, no blending, and now I present to you the golden lemon standard painting of this 3D printed miniature. So in this video, I kinda proved to myself that if you're still undecided on the colors of specific elements of a very detailed miniature, just paint with like burnt umber or anything like maybe purple, and do an underpainting of that. As you decide, as you go along painting the miniature, you'll be able to decide the colors of each element. So as we can see, sketching all the way will work, meaning it's just slapping of colors and then making sure that you produce nice highlights and do good layering with different mixture of paints, and it's practically just mapping out or blocking or sketching where the highlights of all the elements should be, and you'll have a really good painted model. So that's it. If you find the model very complicated, just paint an underpainting and go from there.
That's it, we're done. I hope you liked the video. Do like, comment, subscribe, and consider joining the channel so that you'll be part of our Discord community. Saludos!